What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show here on this Tuesday. Hello, YouTube. Please vote for us on podcastawards.com. We've got a special guest joining us today, Donkey Teeth from Rasball. We're going to talk about Heath's running back tiers. Also, a reminder just for the YouTube audience, we've got 2 live streams today. I'll tell you more about that in a little bit, but 1 o'clock and 7 o'clock Eastern. Be right here on youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Let's start today's show. Heath's running back tiers. Does David Montgomery belong in the same tier as Joe Mixon? Maybe only Heath would say yes to that. Does Josh Jacobs belong in the same tier as Javonte Williams? We're going to get into all of this. Quite frankly, Heath just doesn't have enough tiers. He only has 8. There needs to be at least 20, Heath. So it's okay. We'll workshop it today. Also, happy Red Day. I'm wearing red. Heath is wearing red. And our special guest, Donkey Teeth, is wearing red. Heath didn't even coordinate that. How about that? This is kind of creepy, actually. This red thing.
What's creepy about it?
I don't know. It's just weird. It just looks like we tried.
I think one thing that we consistently try to do on this channel is appear as if we're not trying.
Welcome, Donkey Teeth from Rasball. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, guys. Excited to talk some running backs.
Yeah, and it's really great to have you on. And you are at Donkey Teeth 87, and your name is Donkey Teeth. And tell us about Rasball.
Well, I've been at Rasball. I keep saying Rasball because we are launching our Rasball contest, which is kind of a Scott Fishbowl knockoff that we created a few years back. And both of you will be participating in it. It's about 66% experts, analysts from the industry, and 33% fans. We do a fan lotto, and then people can win their way in. But that's why I keep slipping up and saying Rasball. But Rasball is pretty well established in the fantasy baseball world. And we've been trying to grow the fantasy football side over the past few years. I've kind of been spearheading it. They saw old Donkey Teeth out there, and they said, that's the guy to grow fantasy football for us. So, we've got a lot of fun stuff going on. My running back rankings actually dropped last week. We got the top 20 running backs out there right now working on wide receiver rankings. They'll be up probably today or tomorrow. And we've got a really cool ADP tool that takes a composite from a bunch of different sites that we got permission from, and you can kind of sort through them. A lot of really cool stuff that we're working on over there from the tools side. So that's kind of my quick pitch. Thanks for letting me promote it there, Adam.
Of course. So you took a look at Heath's tiers. I don't know if you have them. I don't know if you even took a look.
There's not enough. I agree.
Yeah, right. What is, at first glance, what are your thoughts on Heath's tiers?
I actually like the way he has them structured. I hate when I look at rankings and it's like, wow, this is just ADP right here. Which a lot of people seem to do nowadays. It's like, move a couple players, one up and one down. But there's some pretty nice hot takes in here, which that's my style, Heath.
Well, there's no. I think it was actually Rasballer, Rudy Gamble, that when there was the big kerfuffle over Fantasy Pros experts analysis and how whether it was worth more to be right about someone that you were different than everyone on than to be right about someone that everybody was right about on, right?
Yeah, he did some analysis on this, and he's driven himself crazy trying to kind of crack the Fantasy Pros competition while also straying from the consensus pretty far. He uses a lot of data analytics to come up with his projections, and then his weekly rankings reflect that. But yeah, I mean, I love the Fantasy Pros competition. Don't get me wrong. It's awesome that we have it and everybody can use that as a reference, but it does to a certain extent, turn into a bunch of sheep following each other. It feels like to me, and there's only a handful of people, because if you go too far against the consensus, the way that their algorithm is set up, it really penalizes you. So it incentivizes people being very similar.
And I think there's something else in that it's more helpful with tiers than rankings. And we talk about this a lot. Like, do you want to rank somebody at running back 10 if you know that nobody has to draft him before running back 20? And so how do you combine rankings with ADP in determining like where you should put somebody. Is it worthwhile to rank somebody 30th overall, like I might with Brandon Cooks, when he goes 65th a lot of the time? Like, should you pull back on that ranking so people aren't drafting him 3 rounds beforehand? I think you just have to have a conversation about your rankings and how to use them relative to ADP. But for the most part, I try to just ignore ADP when I'm doing rankings and tiers.
I think that's the right way to go because, there's so much content. You can write a separate article about these are my rankings versus ADP. We have, a million podcasts throughout the year. You can get that message across.
Right.
I think you should stick to your own rankings and not even worry about ADP. But yeah, Heath, you don't have enough tiers. Your first 3 tiers should actually be 6 tiers. I'm going to tell you what they should be. Okay. Okay. So tier 1 stays the same. McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Eckler, and Henry. And these are PPR specifically?
These are PPR, yes.
Okay, so that should be your first tier. McCaffrey, Taylor, Eckler, and Henry. Your second tier has 7 players in it. Should be 3 separate tiers. The 7 players are Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, and Leonard Fournette. The first part of that tier should be Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and Najee Harris. The second part of that tier should just be Aaron Jones. He's in his own tier.
Okay, so what if I like Aaron Jones more than Najee Harris? How should I work those 2 things that you're telling me out?
You shouldn't like him more than Harris because I'm telling you what the tier should.
Oh, okay, I see.
But he goes after the workhorses, Aaron Jones, and then you've got the last part of that tier, which is the third part, which is the 4th tier overall. DeAndre Swift, Leonard Fournette, and David Montgomery.
Wait, I thought you said that Aaron Jones went after the workhorses, but then you just put David Montgomery after Aaron Jones.
Well, the good workhorses. Workhorses. Sorry, yeah. Mixon, Cook, and Najee are 1 tier, followed by Aaron Jones in his own tier, then Swift, Fournette, and Montgomery. Tier 3, I don't even want, like tier 3, I made so many changes. Tier 3 is, for you, it's Javonte, Barkley, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and Ezekiel Elliott. I made that a Javonte, Chubb, Barkley tier, and then Jacobs and Zeke. But then I added Cam Akers and James Conner from your next tier to Jacobs and Zeke. All right, so you're welcome.
Well, I do appreciate that, and it's super helpful. And now maybe we could just do what we did yesterday and go through each of the tiers and talk about them.
Okay, I think that's a better idea. We have a lot to talk about today. We have 2 live streams. We have one coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. It is a dynasty super flex startup mock draft. Okay, so if you're doing a startup mock, this will be great for you. It'll have rookies. It'll have veterans. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, a special edition of Fantasy Football Today, only on YouTube. Scott Fish is joining us. Tara Roberts is joining us. It's just going to be me and the 2 of them helping you out with your Scott Fish Bowl questions if you're in a Scott Fish Bowl draft, or if you just want to talk general fantasy, fire away.
Since Donkey Teeth got to promote something, can I promote my Scott Fish Bowl team?
Yes, you can. I would like to promote podcastawards.com real quick. We have a QR code on our video. You can scan that, or you can just go to podcastawards.com, or you can follow the link in the episode description. And please vote for us in 2 categories, Best Sports Podcast and Best Male Hosted Podcast. We would love to win it. So please go to podcastawards.com and please vote. We'd really appreciate it. I think we get to the next round and then hopefully win the whole damn thing. Heath is bragging about his Scott Fish Bowl team. He's made 7 picks. That's crazy, by the way. Donkey Teeth has made 2. I've made 3. Go ahead, Heath. What are your 7 great picks?
Well, first off, the Fort Lauderdale division has been fantastic. We have a good Twitter DM chat going that keeps the draft moving. We've already raised over $300 for local charities in South Florida. It's a really good group of people, and we're in round 7. So my division is better than your division. My Scott Fish Bowl team, I have 2 quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Kirk Cousins. I have 1 running back so far. It's Christian McCaffrey. And my wide receivers are Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, and Brandon Cooks.
So Donkey Teeth, in a format where wide receivers have the least value, they're like the least important position, apparently, in the Scott Fish Bowl. Everybody seems to know that and draft that way. Heath has 4 in his first 7 picks. What do you think about? And by the way, no tight ends in a tight end premium.
To be clear, I did not take a wide receiver until pick 48.
It doesn't matter. You have 4. You have none. You have no tight ends and a tight end premium. Donkey Teeth, what do you think about Heath's what he thinks is an incredible team?
I mean, sometimes you got to zig when everybody else is zagging. That presents the best opportunities. You know what I always say, Adam, is it really doesn't matter what strategy you take as long as you pick the right players. I'm not sure if Heath did that, but yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking wide receivers because it's so deep. I mean, you're going to need them, and you're going to need players to fill in for all those flex spots that we have too.
My basic strategy here is that nobody is going to remember next year if I finished 4-7 or 7-4 or anything in between. The only thing worth playing for this is be spectacular in one direction or the other. So I have stacked up the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Brady, Evans, and Godwin. I've also got McCaffrey and DJ Moore, their Week 17 opponent. So if I do make it to the finals and there's fireworks in that Week 17 matchup, my team is just going to absolutely explode. And that's why I took McCaffrey at where I did, because it was pick 12. So it's not like I took him very early. I don't care about injury risk in this format. It doesn't matter.
I know, but why didn't you take any tight ends?
Well, the only option I had was Mark Andrews in the first round. Okay. Kyle Pitts went before I picked in round 3. Kittle and Waller were both gone before I picked in round 4. Dalton Schultz was just gone before I picked in round 6.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Donkey Teeth, what's your 2-person squad so far in the Scott Fish Bowl?
Yeah, it's really filling out well. I had the first pick, and so I went with Josh Allen with that first pick. It's super flex. If people didn't know, I think you mentioned that, Adam. And then on the way back, I did grab Najee Harris. So yeah, I mean, I'm really high on Najee. I guess we'll get to that when we get through Heath's tiers. But I have him. I was very happy to see him still there at pick 24 for me.
Okay, great. So I had the 9th pick. I took Kelsey, then I took Jalen Hurts, then I took Trey Lance with my first 3 picks. Okay, let's do some news and notes.
That would have been dangerous in a different league where completion percentage could really sink your quarterbacks, but thankfully this is not a league like that.
So completion percentage can sink your quarterbacks. Being sarcastic. That is the downside of Jalen Hurts and Trey Lance. The upside is they get a half a point for every rushing first down.
Yeah, Hurts in round 2 was awesome.
Yeah, Lance in round 3 was maybe a reach, but I think I was probably going to end up with something like Carson Wentz if I didn't take it with, in the next round, if I didn't take Lance in round 3. Okay, there is a Deshaun Watson report out there. It is not a concrete one. We are not going to report on it. I saw someone talk about it in the chat, so we're going to wait for something more official. It could be nothing. Dalton Schultz does not appear to be close to a deal. He's on the franchise tag. They have until Friday to give Dalton Schultz a new contract, or he's going to play the season on a 1-year franchise tag deal. And according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, the Seahawks have discussed the possibility of trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. Great. Those are your news and notes. Let's get into Heath's running back tiers. Heath, how would you define tier 1 of McCaffrey? These are PPR, by the way. PPR running back tiers. McCaffrey, Taylor, Eckler, Henry.
I would feel no surprise at all if they finished the year as RB1.
Okay, great. Let's go to number 2. I mean, why? Right. Tier 2 is a big one. There's 7 running backs. Mixon, Cook, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, and Leonard Fournette. How would you define tier 2?
It's a jumbled mess, really. Like any of these guys could be top 5 running backs. I think all of these guys have been top 5 running backs. All right. Like Najee was just over a full season and not per game last year, but
not Swift.
No, Swift only was for like a half a season. You're right.
Swift was
these guys. I would feel no surprise if they finished as top 5 running backs.
Okay. All right, Donkey Teeth, you get in there now. We got Mixon, Cook, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, Leonard Fournette in tier 2. What do you think?
I like the Mixon take. I mean, Heath's a little bit higher on Mixon than most here, but I'm with him. I guess the couple. I think Montgomery's too high. I'm a Bears fan. If you can't see my Walter Payton jersey back here, I think that I have a hard time getting too invested in the Bears. I think he's got a really high floor, but for me in this area, I'm looking for a little bit more upside. Not that he doesn't have the upside. It's just, man, the Bears, their offense is really going to have to reach that like 95th percentile outcome for Montgomery to return this kind of value. In my opinion, I'm a little bit lower on Aaron Jones. I like the Swift take here. I think that's a good spot for Fournette. I think he's getting a little bit disrespected by people. You know, he's not a super exciting pick, but I mean, he's still in one of the best offenses in the league, behind one of the best offensive lines in the league with Tom Brady at quarterback. So pretty solid tiers here. I'd have Najee Harris up in the first one. Really small changes that I would make.
Yeah, and like the Montgomery one is going to be the one. I'm actually writing an article on this that'll come out later this afternoon about the running back tiers, and the two that I chose to defend were Montgomery in tier 2 and Zeke in tier 3, because I think those are the two most controversial right now. I just really think it's underestimated the value of having a 20-touch running back, and he's been a 20-touch running back each of the last 2 years, and I don't think he's going to lose that distinction. And as far as the offense goes, it does profile as a bottom third offense, but I'm as excited about this offense as I've been since David Montgomery joined the Bears, and he was a top 5 running back just a year ago.
He was a top 5 running back, but 2 years ago, right? He finished top 5, and I know. Look, some people don't care, some people do. It was largely weighted on this incredible 6-game stretch he had at the end of the year against mostly the worst, some of the worst run defenses in football. Very similar to what Rashad Penny did, by the way, but not quite as impressive. So Donkey Teeth, how much do you care about that? I mean, when you take a look at David Montgomery, I think if you take those 6 games out of his career, he's averaging 3.7 yards per carry in his career. I think it's only 3.9 for his full career anyway. But I don't know. I think some people don't know what to make of David Montgomery. They don't know if he's really that good. And if you remove those 6 games, then he's been in my opinion, a very underwhelming player. As a Bears fan, what's your little scouting report on David Montgomery?
Well, running back it's a tricky position. We all know, like, they're so dependent on the system, the offense, all these moving pieces around them. There's very few of them that are going to produce regardless of the system. There's only a couple of maybe only one Adrian Peterson out there, but there's a couple guys that are able to get it done in less than ideal situations. Montgomery, I don't think he's a special player. He's not going to fall into that group. He's good. He's made it this far. He's an NFL running back, but he's behind a really bad offensive line. And until the Bears, prove to me that they can develop a quarterback and, be a top 10 offense in the NFL, I just have a hard time. I think the floor is there. I think the carries are going to be there, and there's definitely value in that, especially in like a deeper league. But if we're talking about a 10-team league, I'm looking for a guy that I think has a better shot at finishing in the top 5, which I have a hard time seeing Montgomery doing that. I hope that I'm wrong. I definitely could be wrong. I mean, he's shown flashes of it. It's just I'm gonna trust the other. I don't know how many games he has in his career that weren't those 5 or 6 sample.
What about Aaron Jones? You said you're a little lower on Aaron Jones. I think the CBS crew is very high on Aaron Jones. I was talking to Jamie off the air today, and I mean, I don't know if I should share this, but I think he said he's going to move. Yeah, I'll share it, right? Why not? He's going to move Aaron Jones ahead of Joe Mixon in PPR. So we like Aaron Jones a lot. How do you feel about him?
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he finished right here where Heath has got him, but A.J. Dillon is really he's the X factor here. I think A.J. Dillon's only going to be a bigger part of this offense, and he's going to get those goal line carries. My rankings that I put out are half PPR. I kind of split the difference. I think that's my favorite format. So I think Aaron Jones gets a little bit of a boost in full PPR here, but I just think his upside is a little bit capped with A.J. Dillon there.
And Adam loves you for saying that half PPR is your favorite format. He's going to start using your rankings exclusively from this point on. I will say that there's a similarity there with Jones and with Montgomery, is that I think both of these offenses are going to be extremely running back centric. I think people are too low on Khalil Herbert and maybe A.J. Dillon as well, but I expect that Montgomery and Jones to do enough in the passing game to where the 40% that Herbert or Dillon are on the field is not going to impact them as negatively as it might. Now, the Bears offense is a bit of a crapshoot. Like, we're talking about Luke Getsy, the time he's called plays is in college, and the the quarterback was the leading rusher on that team. But I do think they're going to try to have a pretty running back centric offense, or they're going to have to find some other wide receivers.
And just the last thought on Montgomery, Matt Eberflus. Am I pronouncing that right? By the way, I've heard it different ways. Matt Eberflus, their new head coach, said, we're going to stress those running backs and stretch their role, meaning can he run the whole gamut of the passing tree, which, it looks like Montgomery can. Can he beat guys one-on-one consistently? Is it a safety or a linebacker that's covering him? It's a positive. If he can beat all those guys, DBs and linebackers, and we feel he has the skill set to do that. All right. I think you probably want to talk about Najee Harris, Donkey Teeth, who you said would be in tier 1 for you. Heath is actually a little low on Najee Harris. He has him as a 12, 13 overall kind of pick. What about you?
Yeah, I'm swinging for the fences on Najee Harris. I mean, we all know he had a great rookie season in less than ideal circumstances. There's definitely some question marks. Big Ben is gone. The offensive line isn't great, but he put up 1,700 yards from scrimmage in his rookie season. We all know that there's no such thing as a safe running back. They all get hurt. But I would not be surprised at all if Najee Harris finishes the season as the number 1 running back. Again, half PPR rankings that I've got him ranked number 3 in. But I think that he probably falls in that same right there, 3-4 in full PPR. I think I might move Eckler ahead of him just because he's such a monster in the receiving department. But yeah, Najee Harris is my guy this season. Like I said, I drafted him in Scott Fishbowl. I'm all in on Najee. I'm curious to hear. I guess I probably know why he isn't fully in on Najee for the reasons that I said. Offensive line, question marks with that offense and quarterback, right?
I think that somebody should create a David Montgomery, Najee Harris Spider-Man meme.
No,
they're both going to have subpar efficiency. They're both going to be bad offenses with bad offensive lines. And my big problem with him is that I am concerned that the target volume is going to shrink significantly because I don't think they're very likely to throw 664 passes going from Ben in the huddle to Trubisky or Pickett. And I think both Trubisky and Pickett are more likely to get the ball downfield to their wide receivers or take off when they get under pressure as opposed to dumping the ball off to the running back. So I think both the total target shares and the share that go to running backs could drop. And like the evidence of that, or not the evidence of that, but the outcome of that is I only have Harris projected for 5 more catches than Montgomery this year.
So I think that the big difference to me is the Bears versus the Steelers. Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have a track record of producing first-round running backs. And again, we saw Najee Harris behind a terrible offensive line last year put up really nice numbers. So I get the concerns for sure. They're valid, but I'd rather take that gamble. Like I said, I'm shooting for the moon, and I think Najee Harris is that kind of guy. Even though the talent gap might not be that big between Montgomery and Najee, I think Najee's a little bit more talented, but it's probably not a big difference.
I don't think we should condemn him to being inefficient either. It's been basically 3 years for Montgomery, and you look at Christian McCaffrey in his rookie year, Le'Veon Bell in his rookie year. There are actually a lot more examples of guys who just had a terrible yards per carry, and they were fantastic running backs after that.
But and that's true. Like we shouldn't, and I don't really think that the inefficiency has that much to do with him. I just don't think the situation has changed to make him more efficient. And yards per carry is not the only way to measure efficiency. As a pass catcher, I think Montgomery's been significantly more efficient.
Well, every pass catcher on the Steelers was horribly inefficient, right? I mean,
right. I don't know that Mitchell
offense.
Trubisky or rookie Kenny Pickett's going to assist in that.
All right. You know what? I did some crazy stat work. I'm going to leave it.
No, please do. Please do.
I just want to give you a thought on the floor for Najee Harris, because he should be among the NFL leaders in carries. He had 307 last year. So let's just say he had 300 in 17 games, if he gets that, or that would be 282 carries in 16 games. I looked at all the running backs who reached that mark, either 282 carries in 16 games or 300 carries last year. Over the last 5 seasons, there were 12 running backs who reached that mark. They all finished At the very worst, they were top 10 per game in PPR. 9 of the 12 finished top 6 per game. Najee Harris was one of the exceptions. He finished 8th per game last year in PPR. And the 3 players who did not finish top 6 were on subpar offenses. They were LaShawn McCoy in 2018, Nick Chubb in 2019, Najee Harris last year, and they were all on offenses that ranked 21st or 22nd in scoring. However, there were some examples of guys in that range, McCaffrey, Zeke, Derrick Henry, 20th, 23rd in scoring, who did finish top 6. So I guess my point is there is so much safety with him if he stays healthy, because he should get the 300 carries. And I mean, I can't imagine he'd be any worse than what he was last year, which was 8th per game in PPR. Okay, let's take a quick break here. We'll talk about tier 3, Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Ezekiel Elliott, when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. And we are back looking at Heath's running back tiers. We're up to tier 3. Quick reminder, tier 1 was McCaffrey, Taylor, Eckler, and Henry. Tier 2 was Mixon, Cook, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Montgomery, Swift, and Fournette. These are PPR tiers. And tier 3 is 5 running backs. I think this is a really interesting tier. Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb. But then Jacobs and Elliott, who you have ahead of Kamara, which is all about suspension. But you have Jacobs and Elliott in this tier. But you have Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, James Conner, Breece Hall, Antonio Gibson in the next tier. And I wonder why Jacobs and Elliott snuck into this third tier.
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about it on FFT and 5. For the most part, the tier 4 tier is more I don't know how many games these guys are going to play. At least at the top of it. The bottom of it, I don't really believe that Hall, I don't know how many games Hall's going to get to be a workhorse would be a better way to phrase it. But I think it's more just that I'm a little bit higher on Josh Jacobs and Ezekiel Elliott. For Zeke in particular, listen, there's floor concerns with the way he looked after the injury last year and the way Tony Pollard outperformed him down the stretch. But every single thing that you hear out of Dallas suggests that they think he's 100% again, and they are going to use him like Ezekiel Elliott again. And if that's true, then he's a tier 2 running back at the absolute worst.
Right. He was at the beginning of the year.
If it's true, he might be a tier 1 running back.
All right,
so it's tough to balance that with the floor of maybe that injury last year was the one that took away that whatever percentage of ability that he's just not that good anymore. But I don't want to overlook the upside of what Zeke could be and has been.
All right, so let's get Donkey Teeth's take here on tier 3. Javonte Williams, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Ezekiel Elliott.
Well, I guess to follow up on Zeke, since we're already there, I wholeheartedly agree. I've actually been pretty down on Zeke the past couple seasons, so it's weird for me to now feel like everything is kind of flip-flopped and everybody hates Zeke. It's so strange to see him ranked so low, even though I'm not crazy about him. It's like you don't have to be crazy about him to be drafting him in the area that he's in. There's definitely some risk there just because of how many carries that he's got piled up in his career. But at the place that he's going, I mean, he can easily finish as an RB1. We know that. So the risk reward is great this season on Zeke. I've got him at 15 personally. I think the big one that I disagree with in this tier is Javonte Williams. I'm huge on Javonte Williams as well this season. You know, I've got him at number 7. I was going to have him even higher until the Melvin Gordon re-signing. But, even in a split offense, we saw Javonte Williams look better than Melvin Gordon last year. Of course, I think Melvin Gordon is going to be a part of that, the game plan, and it's going to be split. But, there's so many committees now. It's like how many running backs are really going to be handling 25 carries a game, even 20 carries a game. So I think Javonte Williams gets the job done as the lead back, with Melvin still being a factor there and vulturing some touchdowns and taking some carries. But with Russell Wilson now at the helm in year 2, I think Javonte Williams, he's going to be a consensus tier 1 running back next year is my opinion.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with ranking Javonte Williams anywhere or tiering him anywhere, honestly, just because I don't know where the split's going to happen with Williams and Gordon. I I obviously, if I have him in tier 3, I think the split's going to be much different than it was last year, because if the split was what it was last year, I'd have him in tier 5. He was not over the course of the season, and really, especially if you just count the games that he played with Melvin Gordon, he was not really a starting running back for fantasy purposes. He was more of a flex. So, and I do expect a big change, but does that big change include him scoring a higher percentage of the touchdowns than Melvin Gordon? I hope so. I don't know. So he's right there at the top of tier 3. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually a tier 2 back, but I wouldn't be that surprised either if he's a tier 4 back. If it's a 55-45 split between Williams and Melvin Gordon, who I think has kind of turned into a little bit of a punching bag. Like, Melvin Gordon was still really pretty good last year, and on fewer touches scored more fantasy points.
And you can get him about 100th overall, Melvin Gordon, too. All right, so I think we'll move on to tier 4, which will have some overlap for a lot of people. The end of tier 3, beginning of tier 4, you just pick the guys you like. You know, people are going to like Cam Akers over Josh Jacobs, maybe, or James Conner ahead of Zeke and Jacobs, something like that. But tier 3 was Javonte, Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, and Ezekiel Elliott. And tier 4 is Alvin Kamara, Cam Akers. See, Kamara deserves his own tier.
Oh, yeah, yes. And then we should just put an asterisk by it. And if Alvin Kamara is not suspended at all, he's a tier 2 running back.
Okay.
If he's suspended for half the season, then he's a tier 5 or 6 running back.
Kamara, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, James Conner, Breece Hall, and Antonio Gibson. I'm going to give Donkey Teeth the first word here. Kamara, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, James Conner, Breece Hall, Antonio Gibson. What do you think about this tier? Not even, who you can talk about who you have higher or lower, but where are we? Are we looking at this could easily be my first running back? I'd be happy with them if I took, wide receivers with my first, wide receiver tight end with my first 3 picks, and this is my RB1, or I want this as my RB2, or I'm skipping over this group. Your general thoughts on this group, because we're into round 4 really in ADP, and maybe into the beginning of round 5 in a 12-team league.
Yeah, I don't want this as my first running back. That I'm very confident in. We're looking at RB2s here. I guess I shouldn't say that, because I would be comfortable. There's one guy in this tier that I really love. It's Antonio Gibson. There's definitely some risk, though. I wouldn't feel great about having him as my RB1. Really excited to have him as my RB2. But this is mostly an avoid tier for me. I like Breece Hall as well. James Conner, he had a great season, but it's really hard for me to get fully on board with. I mean, the touchdowns are going to come back down. But there's a lot of risk. This is a risky tier. I think that's Heath kind of framed it up that way, and I agree. Even Alvin Kamara, even if he weren't to get suspended, which I think he will, I still don't know if I can get on board with him in tier 2 after what we saw from him without Drew Brees last year. He came back down to earth. He's now 27 years old. That's not really young for a running back. The carries and touches have piled up in his career. So, there's just a ton of risk in this tier. I guess to circle back to my Antonio Gibson love, he's the guy that, again, I mean, a common theme with my rankings and when I'm talking here today is I'm after that upside. I'm after that guy that I think can be a league winner, and I think Antonio Gibson has that upside, even if he is splitting carries and touches with McKissick and the rookie Brian Robinson. I mean, we've seen that might be better for Antonio Gibson for his health down the stretch. He's broken down. He's not exactly that kind of guy that you want to get 20 to 25 carries a game, but he's a game breaker. 15 carries a game and 5, 6, 7 receptions, and he can put up top 10 running back numbers all day long. So I've got him at number 11. I'll kick it back over to Heath here.
Yeah, I think you could divide this into 2 groups. I'm just going to go with Adam's break my tiers into more tiers, giving me tiers. Kamara, Akers, Dobbins, and Hall, I would kind of describe as I'm hoping they could be RB1s in the second half. Conner and Gibson are more of, I know they could be RB1s. I'm not sure their teams are going to use them in the way that would bring that about. With Gibson specifically, I just hated Washington's offseason. I hated the fact that whatever that thing was with J.D. McKissick, where the Bills thought he was going to be a Bill, and then Washington went in and made a last-ditch effort to bring McKissick back. Why do that when you have a running back who's better as a receiver on your team? And then to use, with the few draft picks they had, to use a draft pick on another running back and then start telling us how that's going to be their D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. Well, D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart were an awesome combination. That would be great. I don't think that would be a very good combination if you also have another running back who's going to catch 50 passes on the team. So I think Gibson could be a top 12 running back. I definitely like Connor. I've talked all off season about how good I think he is in the passing game. But I don't know why, when they already had Benjamin and they'd already drafted a day 3 back, they went and signed third down specialist Darrell Williams. It makes me concerned that they don't want to use Connor that way. And Connor specifically has enough injury history that might make some sense. But I don't think Connor in last year's role is going to be a top 12 running back.
I just wonder if if we're overrating the competition for James Conner. Because I'm all about this, Heath. I mean, one of my bold predictions was that he would be a bust. I don't remember what it was, but then I got to thinking of it more because I saw I don't remember where it was, some report, some beat writer saying that Benjamin was the favorite to be the third down back. My
concern, I want to be very clear. I don't think Benjamin or Keontae Ingram or Darrell Williams are any competition at all for James Conner. My concern is that the team wants to use them on the downs where Connor really, like, not in touchdowns, but I don't think he's going to score that many touchdowns again. Yeah. But they want to use him on those pass catching downs and keep his catch total closer to 30 than 50.
Yeah, I completely agree. But then there's also this: he was the third best pass blocker among running backs.
He's awesome
last year, according to PFF. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like I agree with everything, but I'm also wondering if we're being a little too harsh. And then, all right, let's Cam Akers, by the way, is someone, Heath, that could definitely jump up, right? I mean, based on what we see this preseason and training camp, Cam Akers.
Yeah, for me, it's probably more of a situation where I think Cam Akers could surprise me. I've pretty much decided that I think Cam Akers is okay. I didn't believe J.K. Dobbins is someone that if we start training camp and, J.K. Dobbins is not on the PUP list, then he would make a massive leap. But I thought J.K. Dobbins was a lot better running back coming into the NFL than Cam Akers. And Akers hasn't done anything to disprove that for me yet.
All right, let's go to Tier 5. Sign me up for the RB Dead Zone. Sign me up for Tier 5. I like Heath's tier here: Elijah Mitchell, Travis Etienne, Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chase Edmonds, Miles Sanders, and A.J. Dillon. Personally, I don't think I would have Clyde or Edmonds here, but I think, not every pick you make has to be a home run. There are times when just getting a guy who is start-worthy and dependable helps. And I think you could hit home runs. I mean, Elijah Mitchell, I think he had 5 games with 20-plus carries last year. That's unheard of for a 49ers running back. ETN, obviously, first-round pick and could be a PPR stud. Kareem Hunt was better than Nick Chubb in the 5 games they played together last year in full PPR. And I think he was like the 8th best running back per game in the first 5 games of the season before Chubb got hurt and then Hunt got hurt. Yeah, and then you got A.J. Dillon, you got Miles Sanders, you got Clyde, you got Chase Edmonds. Heath, sign me up. I'm in the dead zone here. I'm all about Tier 5.
Yeah, there's no floor at all with virtually any of these running backs, and there is super exciting ceiling, depending on role, for almost all of these running backs. So I could understand why you wanted to. And the great thing is, like, some of these guys fall so far, they're almost out of the dead zone. Like, we're almost to the other side.
Why do you say there's no floor? Why do you say there's no floor?
Because, well, don't you want like on an individual case?
Yeah, because unless you're
Kareem Hunt might be in the smaller half of a committee on a team quarterbacked for 17 games by Jacoby Brissett.
He will be smaller half.
Travis Etienne could just be a gadget back for James Robinson.
Okay.
Elijah Mitchell is a 6th round running back on a Kyle Shanahan team. that has 2 other third-round running backs that Shanahan has chosen the past 2 years. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obvious, I think. Chase Edmonds, obvious, I think.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders can't even score a touchdown. AJ Dillon has a nice floor. Honestly, I think Dillon and Hunt are perfect high-end flexes if nobody gets hurt, and number 1 running backs if the other guy gets hurt. Huge upside with some flex floor.
All right, Donkey Teeth, what do you think about tier 5 here?
Well, I mean, I think back in tier 4, we kind of hit that spot where, man, you can rank these players somewhere in tier 4. We hit that spot where you can rank these guys any way you want. And it especially becomes true from tier 5 on here. I mean, these guys, as he said, no floor, and anybody beyond them could end up being more valuable. So the player that I'll go to bat for in tier 5 is Miles Sanders. I think that he's the Eagles. I don't know if either of you guys owned Miles Sanders or if you remember how frustrating that offense was at the start of last year, but they just like forgot that they had Miles Sanders. They didn't run the ball at all. It was the most bizarre thing. Like everybody knew that they should be running the ball and they just didn't run it at all. And then he got hurt. So I'm just throwing last year out. Again, back to my theme of upside. Miles Sanders, anytime he touches the ball, coincidentally, he had 0 touchdowns last year as Heath poked at there. But anytime he touches the ball, he can take it to the house. He's a game breaker. If he can stay healthy, absolutely. The floor is 0, but if he can stay healthy, there is RB1 upside. So he's the guy that I want to draft in this tier at his current ADP. And let's see who else. I like AJ Dillon, but I think the rest of this tier, other than ETN, has got that upside to be the lead back. It's just we don't know how that's going to be handled with James Robinson. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has that upside. The rest of the tier feels like pretty solid committee backs.
You think so with Mitchell in San Francisco?
He's either a workhorse back or he's on the waiver wire. We don't know.
Yeah, he belongs in his own tier, Adam.
Look, the thing about San Francisco is I really think that the running back injuries have been so weird. But if you look at the last 3 seasons, in the way I have seen it, it may not be so obvious in the numbers, but if you look at the box scores and when injuries actually happened, I really think that Raheem Mostert was on his way, that they were treating him like a true lead running back, not involved in the passing game. That I'm not counting that. But in terms of carries, like Raheem Mostert, it was his backfield, I think, 2 straight years, and he couldn't stay healthy and take advantage of it. And last year, it was all Elijah Mitchell when Elijah Mitchell was healthy. I mean, the amount of carries this guy got was off the charts. So I think that they're not as much of a committee as they're made out to be. The one exception would be late in the 2019 season, I believe. It was a very much committee between Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. But that was after Mostert missed time with an injury. Before the injury, it was his backfield. So that's just my take on it. I think that they are more willing to give someone a full workload in the running game than maybe they get credit for.
No, I don't. I think I agree with that. My distinction might be that they're not very loyal.
I think they are loyal as long as there's not an injury. That's what I'm saying. I think they were loyal to Mostert. They realized he was the best guy, and he just couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you, to be honest, but I think the injury thing here is kind of weird, the loyalty and injury thing, because it's like even if somebody gets a little bit banged up, they can be like out in a second. And I think that's the loyalty thing Heath is talking about. It doesn't take like a 4 or 5, 6 week injury. It takes like, hey, I'm a little bit sore today.
All right, let's go into the last 3 tiers, which is, Tony Pollard, I think, is at the top of tier 6, and we could start with that. Why is Tony Pollard in tier 6 and not in the AJ Dillon, Kareem Hunt tier?
I moved him into the tier 5 for FFT and 5 yesterday, and you said no, you didn't agree that he belonged in that tier, so I dropped him back into tier 6.
I agree with you.
It's literally just because you said so.
It's touchdowns for me. I think when you look at Hunt and Dillon, you could see them each getting some rushing touchdowns, whereas if Zeke and Pollard are both healthy, that is Zeke's role.
I really kind of think that this tier 6 group probably needs an injury and maybe some good luck and or some good luck to finish as a top 25 running back.
Okay, so let's read the tier. Pollard, Pierce, Damian Pierce, Nyheim Hines, Michael Carter, Cordero Patterson, James Cook, Damian Harris, Tyler Algier, Devin Singletary, Melvin Gordon, Ken Walker, Rashad Penny, and Ronald Jones. Donkey Teeth, any disagreements? Anybody in here that you think belongs in a different tier, either higher or lower?
No strong disagreements. I think the guy that I'd highlight is Cordero Patterson. Nobody seems to believe what he did last year, which, I mean, it is hard to believe, but just the fact that he did it and he's being drafted. I keep drafting him in these startup dynasties that Heath keeps inviting to me that you guys are doing over there. Because he's always there at like pick 130. And it's like, yeah, he's not a great dynasty asset, but he just finished top 10. I don't think he's going to do it again, but he just proved that he can. And what other competition is there? I mean, it's a weird thing where it's like, I don't like him, but I'll keep drafting him where he's going. I think Kenneth Walker is interesting. Pete Carroll continues to produce running backs that rack up fantasy points. So, and Damian Harris. Damian Harris is the other one that I like here. And it's hard to get fully on board with a Belichick running back, but they really went pretty far in on Damian Harris last year. I like Ramondre Stevenson as well, but I think that there's a pretty good argument for Damian Harris being up in tier 5.
In half PPR, I definitely would have him up there. In full PPR, I'm just worried that the kind of this timeshare we saw at the end of last year will be more what we see the entire year, only he won't score 15 touchdowns on 200 carries.
Devin Singletary is interesting too, Heath. Would you move him up into another tier in a half PPR league? Because I think obviously you're worried about they have James Cook, who you also have in this tier. So what about Singletary?
Yeah, there are some duos here. You got Walker and Penny. You've got Singletary and Cook. You've got Patterson and Algier. I think those are the teammates that all find themselves in this tier. I would move Singletary up a tier in half PPR. He's been one of the worst pass catching running backs in the NFL. So I just don't like the fact that they went so hard after McKissick and now I've got Cook. I think he might be a poor man's Damian Harris is my fear.
All right, tier 7 is Khalil Herbert, James Robinson, Deontay Foreman, Ramondre Stevenson, Rashad White, Kenneth Gainwell, and Alexander Madison. I can't call this a strictly handcuffed tier.
Mostly handcuffed here.
Okay. So how do James Robinson and I guess Ramondre Stevenson fit in with guys who look like more true handcuffs? Herbert, Deontay Foreman, Rashad White in Tampa Bay, Kenneth Gainwell, and Alexander Madison.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gainwell and Stevenson are going to be low-end flexes if there's no injury, but if there's an injury, could be really good. And as for James Robinson, he's another guy who just needs his own tier because I have no idea what to do with him. But they continue to talk semi-optimistically about the idea that he might come off the pup before the season starts.
Donkey Teeth, any thoughts? Again, Khalil Herbert, James Robinson, Deontay Foreman, Ramondre Stevenson, Rashad White, Kenneth Gainwell, Alexander Madison.
I mean, I think you pretty well highlighted the two guys that stick out, James Robinson and Stevenson. I feel like they kind of separate from this tier. And I also agree with what Heath said about Khalil Herbert when we were talking about David Montgomery. I think that outside of being a handcuff, there could be some value in Khalil Herbert this year. Of course, I'm not going to be drafting him aggressively, but he's more of in most leagues, shallower leagues, kind of just a guy I'm keeping an eye on throughout the season because that role could be bigger than people are expecting.
Stevenson is interesting when you compare him to somebody like Alexander Madison, who we've seen can be a top 5-ish running back when Dalvin Cook is out, but has basically no role when Dalvin Cook is in. New coaching staff, don't know if that'll change, but Stevenson, in the last 5 games that Stevenson and Harris played together after Harris got hurt, Stevenson had 2 more carries than Damian Harris. They had I think the same amount of touches, and they both had about 50 carries. Stevenson did a lot better with those carries, but they were low catch, about 10 carry per game guys, which is really terrible. But Stevenson, I guess, has a role which you could say, well, that puts him ahead of Madison. But at the same time, he's so much less upside because even if Harris gets hurt, if both guys have a running back injury in their backfield, wouldn't you say Madison has more upside than Stevenson?
I would.
Yeah. So it's an interesting decision you'll have to make from your fantasy team based on what you need at that point and how deep you are at running back.
We don't need to say the names in tier 8. It's sad.
No, that's not sad. There's some interesting players. There's J.D. McKissick. I don't know why J.D. McKissick is in tier 8 and James Cook is in tier 6.
Because I don't want J.D. McKissick to ever come close to his 2020 role again. I would like to pretend like he doesn't exist for most of the time. No, I think there's a better chance that James Cook could turn into an actual running back than J.D. McKissick.
Okay.
And James Cook's not 30.
McKissick, Jamal
And
Williams
on the Bills.
Daryl Henderson. Okay. Kenyon Drake, Gus Edwards, Daryl Williams, Brian Robinson, Raheem Mostert, Marlon Mack, Isaiah Spiller, James White, Mark Ingram. I guess we don't really need to talk about that. So
No idea. Like Mark Ingram might be way too low.
Yeah.
He might be a tier 5 running back if we get this Kamara suspension news.
Any final thoughts on that, Donkey Teeth?
I mean, the one player in tier 8 that I'd highlight is Brian Robinson, just because we know that Antonio Gibson is no sure thing to stay healthy, and McKissick is not going to be, a workhorse. So he's the upside guy, the unknown shiny rookie that in the late rounds of a deep league I would take a shot on in this tier. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this show. It's really taught me a lot about tiers, how many tiers you should have. This really great tier philosophy.
What color shirt you should wear? I, by the way, have a Bushwood Country Club shirt.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that good? Yeah.
Is that the country club that you got shut down a couple years ago?
No, that is not. That is the Caddy
Thought
Shack
maybe you got a T-shirt out of the settlement.
Country Club. No, I didn't do that.
I actually just got a Caddyshack t-shirt. It says "Tremendous Slouch" on it.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Donkey. You're a tremendous.
Tremendous slouch, yeah.
I'm going to read a few emails here while we have a minute. Travis, are you good? You gotta hop off, or are you good?
Good
Donkey
here.
Teeth? Okay,
I'm
cool.
good, yeah.
Who's Travis?
Travis in a town north of Lansing. Oh, you thought I was talking to Travis?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I interrupted myself mid-thought there. Travis is the emailer.
Okay.
He says, "Dear Steve, Sergey, Brendan, and Nicholas."
I bet those are hockey players.
They are. They feel like Detroit Red Wings to me, which would maybe be a town north of Lansing. I don't know. 12-team PPR Superflex tight end premium. This is a dynasty league with 2 flex, 3 wide receivers. So again, it's PPR and it's Superflex with tight end premium. How would you assess his team? He has
Okay.
12-team league.
Come on. You're not going to read off 18 names to us and have us assess a team.
I think you can do it fairly easily.
Why don't you just put it on the screen? Share your screen with us.
That would be less easy. That would be less easy. All right, you know what? This is not the best email to read.
Well, now you've already teased him. At least read his starting lineup. You know?
All right.
He's probably like sitting there like, oh, they're going to read it.
Herbert, Goff, and Pickett. A.J. Dillon, Eli Mitchell, Devin Singletary, Rashad Penny, Trey Sermon. So far, not very good. But Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, Devontae Smith, DJ Chark, Pickens, Terrace Marshall, Tyler Boyd, and Mecole Hardman, and George Kittle, Hayden Hurst, and Kate Otten at tight end. I do not like this team very much.
I think you're a little ways away, and the Kittle and Tyreek and probably one other person I didn't hear, Singletary, like some of those guys, I would be looking to move and hoping to compete next year.
Okay, yeah, I think Keenan Allen was in there.
Yeah.
Was
Okay.
that full PPR?
Yes.
Yeah, it helps a little. Yeah, I mean, the running back was the obvious weakness. He's got a lot of long-term assets there at wide receiver. So, yeah, maybe looking towards 2023.
Here's an email from Nick. Dear Terry, Mark, Bubby, and Neil.
Those are Steelers quarterbacks?
Yeah, okay. Here is the team I just drafted in my 24 rosters. No, just kidding. With Tyreek Hill gone, doesn't it seem likely that defenses will double team Travis Kelce a lot? And therefore we should pass on Travis Kelce.
I think Travis Kelce has been doubled a lot already.
Obviously I had this thought because it's going to certainly change the way teams defend them, they're not going to see the single high safety look or the two high safety look as much. I wouldn't think, and that's that's a tight end's best friend. I think we had Rich Rebar lay that out for us a couple years ago about Travis Kelce. He's benefited from that, but I tend to just think he's going to get peppered with targets, and that's better than this theory.
Yeah, it could go either way. I mean, definitely something to be said for Tyreek opening up the field. I just don't think I'm going to draft Travis Kelce where he's going anyway in the early second round. But you could definitely see him being peppered and putting up those typical Travis Kelce monster numbers still.
And I'm skeptical as to whether teams stop playing cover 2. It's one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes and a lot of speed. I don't know that you want to take a chance with that, but maybe.
All right, this is from Elliot. He says he is picking 7th in a 12-team PPR league, and he wants to take Justin Jefferson. It is a 2 running back, 2 receiver, 1 flex league. He's looking at Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, or Saquon Barkley in round 2. Who would you take if you took Jefferson in round 1, and it's only a 2 receiver league with 1 flex? Would you take Aaron Jones, CeeDee Lamb, or Saquon Barkley, and why? Donkey Teeth, you can go first.
Saquon. I'm pretty big on Saquon, and I feel like if you've only got, I might not take Jefferson if you only need to start 2 wide receivers. That's a huge factor, especially, I don't know, did you say how many teams? Is it 10, 12? 12. Yeah, I mean, still very shallow. You only need 2 wide receivers. That's only 24 wide receivers that are going to be started, depending on if people throw them in their flex, but it really devalues wide receivers. So I would definitely be going running back with that pick. And honestly, I would consider running back with the first pick if there's any options there. But Saquon would be my guy.
I'm good with Jefferson there, but I would take Aaron Jones in the second.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Donkey T. Thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, you guys are great. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you.
We'll see him in about 2 hours. Well,
Yeah,
we'll see him in the draft room.
He won't
I'm
be
just going to hang out with you guys all day.
Cool. All right. We will talk to you all at 1:00 with our live mock draft. And if you can't catch that, that's at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Join us at 7:00 where Scott Fish and Tara Roberts and I will be answering your questions and helping you with your Scott Fish Bowl drafts. If you're lucky enough to be like Heath, will be in round 10 by then. Donkey Teeth and I will probably be in round 3 or 4 by then. But we will talk to you then. So again, for Donkey Teeth and Heath Cummings, I'm Adam Azer. We've got wide receiver tier. Oh, I forgot. Wide receiver tiers is also tonight. What a busy day. 4 shows. So that's usually our Wednesday show. It's actually going to be on Tuesday night at 8:15 Eastern with Heath and Jacob Gibbs. All right. We'll